Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Express webinar series, Achieving Organizational Agility with Scrum at Scale. So here we have experienced Scrum at Scale coaches and trainers who offer to share their insights with us into how to apply Scrum at Scale, the Scrum at Scale framework to achieve organizational agility. And my name is Carol McEwen. I'm CEO and Chief Product Owner here at Scrum at Scale, and I'm happy to be your host and moderator for today's webinar. A couple of weeks ago, our presenters, Dee and Q, presented Scaling the Product Owner, and we thought that it would be very valuable to continue the conversation, considering we had so many really awesome questions. Today's webinar is a bit unique in that it will follow a similar format to the virtual coaching sessions that our trainers offer. And if you'd like the format and are interested in participating in those, feel free to check out the scrumatscale.com/virtual coaching sessions where you can find out where we hold those. I am going to stop for 1 second because I'm getting some feedback. Is everyone doing that? Yeah. Where that's coming from. Okay. Let's see if I can try something. Apologize for inconvenience here. We weren't getting that in test mode. Okay. So well, that didn't work either.
That didn't work either. So, hey, Carol, it's Dee here. Why don't I go ahead and get the introductions started while you're working on that audio, or is it speaking when I'm speaking as well, I think, isn't it?
I think it's happening as well. I'm going to try putting myself on mute here and see if it's still.
Okay, Carol, this is Dee giving it a test, and I am still hearing the squeak even when you're on mute.
That's unfortunate.
So someone is saying that there is a separate dial-in to use. Is there a separate dial-in to use?
There is a dial-in, I believe. Let me go.
It should be in the invite, I believe.
Yeah, there is a dial-in invite.
Are saying that the sound is okay for them. So
yeah, they're saying that the dial-in sounds great.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's just, we as moderators and presenters will have to deal with it. And thank you for the audience allowing us to move forward then, if it's okay for you. So before introducing today's speakers, who you already talked to, I'd like to just cover a few housekeeping items. And first is that you will be on listen-only mode. So please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen or wherever you have it on Zoom to ask questions. And you may use the chat feature for chatting back and forth to each other, but I'll be moderating from the Q&A. So please use the Q&A to ask any questions that you'd like to answer. And we will not be using the raise your hand functionality today. So don't use that because I won't be able to ask you a question. And then several people always ask, is this webinar eligible for SEUs? And the answer is yes. But because this is only a half an hour webinar, you'll be required to watch 2 of the Express webinars to claim 1 SEU through Scrum Alliance. So just be aware of that. And then this webinar is being recorded, so if you can't stay on for the whole webinar or you want to catch it again later because it's got some awesome content that you want to remind yourself of what you heard, you will be able to watch it on demand at the Scrum at Scale website and through the YouTube channel. So with that, now we're ready to start the webinar, and I'm going to pass it over to Dee and Q. So thanks very much for sharing your insights with us today, and take it away, Dee.
All right, well, thanks, Carol, and thanks to all for joining us. And yes, happy Friday. We made it. My name is Dee Rhoda, and I'm an Agile coach and trainer. I'm based in the Minneapolis area. I'm also a Scrum at Scale trainer. It's been a year and a couple of months for me now in that role. I'm helping some organizations transform and scale their organizations and their agility. And I'm happy to be here today. Q, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
I am Q, and an Agile coach and trainer, also Scrum at Scale trainer, almost a year now. and I'm here based in the Washington, D.C. area, and we are here gladly to help you guys learn more about Scrum and Scrum at Scale. Dee, back to you.
So actually, Q, these are some questions that were compiled from the last time we were all together. I think it was about a month ago. And the topic then was product ownership, challenges, and opportunities. And the first question there, Q, I think you can help us address with what you see as distinct advantages with the boards and such. Can you help us out with that question?
Absolutely. It's no secret that I'm a very big proponent of physical boards in lieu of virtual boards. And the reason I say that is, and the question I should say, do tools pose limitations with scaling? Tools necessarily do not. I think tools pose limitations, period. Because the tools never do what you could do on a physical board. You cannot put things on top of things. You cannot write on top of them. You cannot move them randomly around. Also, you're very limited by the space that you have on a screen to have a broader view. We have clients, and I remember showing the last time that the wall width, it's huge. I mean, they see the whole corporation in there. So the tools limit you to the functionality that the tools provide. The physical boards, it's up to you how to organize and how to put things in there. Dee, back to you for question 2.
Yeah, this is an interesting question for me. Q and I were talking about this question right before we came on to the webinar. Candidates getting recruited to take on both the role of product owner and Scrum Master, matching those two together. And of course, this is a difficult, that would put a person in a very difficult position because Scrum Master is responsible for ensuring that the Scrum process, the Scrum framework is in place. Oh, thanks, Q. And the product owner is really focusing on getting the most value out of the product increments that are being delivered through the work of the development team. And the product owner is not neutral. The Scrum Master is when it comes to product. And the product owner doesn't focus on process, but they focus on getting product out the door quickly with high quality. And the Scrum Master, as servant leader and coach, is coaching product owner and how to make that happen through the backlog, the ordering, and the refinement of the backlog. So the question I pose to folks that wanted one individual to hold both of those roles is, how is that Scrum Master going to coach the product owner on having a healthy, ready backlog? Are they going to look in the mirror at that individual and start coaching them from that perspective? So I do not agree that it is a good position to be in, and I highly promote that there be a product owner who is not the same person as the Scrum Master. And I think, Q, the next question is mine as well, and who's responsible for prioritizing the epics?
That's correct.
Yeah, in Scrum and Scale, that's a very easy and quick answer. It is the chief product owner prioritizing the epics. And I guess I have the next one too. Q must like to listen to me talk. How often does the executive meta Scrum meet? Well, the Scrum at Scale guide does not specify how often they should meet. But when Q and I are coaching, we coach at the executive meta Scrum members as they first develop their team should be meeting once a day. We like to encourage that to continue to happen, but understand that once the executive meta Scrum team matures, they may not need to meet necessarily every day, but we would like them to meet at least once a sprint. Now I'm going to hand it over to you.
I had a question, how the product owner gains knowledge, and several ways to do that. And you can think, importance for the product owners to understand output and outcome. And especially novice product owners, they are somehow more preoccupied with the output than the outcome. And we should actually strive to have as little output as possible to maximize the outcome. So some of the tools that we use to get knowledge, one is to have something called a discovery process, which can last a day to a couple weeks, etc. When we try to understand everything that we're doing, try to understand what the product vision is, try to what resources and people are going to need. And at the end of this period, we usually come up with several maps we come up with an MVP, and we have a loose release plan. Another tool that's used very commonly is to have something that's called an impact map, which is a very, very interesting way. It's a mind map. And the reason I like it, because it's a known fact that the brain processes visual information 60,000 times faster than text. Text is processed in your short-term memory, which at best holds, I don't know, about 7 items, minus or plus 2. And images are stored as metadata in your brain. And it's just, you can come back to the one picture, it's worth 1,000 words. So you can see a sample impact map. And in here I have a bit more explanatory thing. This will be available for download after the webinar is over. And you can see at the left, we have the outcome. And at the further right, we have the output. Impact maps are very good because they translate product into a viable backlog. They prevent that tendency we have to start designing stuff before actually understanding the problem. I was a developer for a long time, and boy, do we do that, you know. And the differences that you can see between an impact map and a backlog, basically is a backlog is work to be done, and an impact is work that could be done. And we also can trace something in an impact map all the way to the output. Another tool that product owners used a lot is several mappings. And as you can see here, we start with an impact mapping, then we go to a story mapping, and then we go to specifications, which is usually done by example. And then we actually go into developing code or creating product in case it's not software. Another thing that's very common for product owners to do is use what is called a lean canvas. And there are several variations of the lean canvas. I was actually teaching how to use this yesterday in a training class. There are at least 3 or 4 variations of those. Those are very good tools that the product owner can acquire, and not only acquire, but validate knowledge. A lot of things that you may put an impact map turn out not to be true once they start to be scrutinized by others. And the same thing with the lean canvas, where you have to explain what are your business advantages, what your business model, if your assumptions are correct or not. Something that's not in here, that's very important for product owners too, is to conduct interviews. It's a very good way to gain insight. Usability labs, there are several tools. Those are just very few ones that we have in this limited time to discuss. And I hope this information is helpful for you guys. We can discuss this further on later in the webinar. Dee, back to you.
Oops, you're on mute.
Dee, you're on mute.
Yep, got it. But Q, I think you were going to step us through some of the techniques for product discovery. Did you do that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. So, the next one is the BA role, and how is that different from the product owner role? Well, there is no BA role in Scrum, we all know that, but there are skills associated with business analysis that can be of great benefit to the Scrum team. The product owner is responsible for delivering highest quality value of the product. And that is not necessarily something that a business analyst is looking at. A business analyst is tending to look at requirements, not the whole picture. So the product owner, that sole individual responsible for the care and feeding of the product, is a bit different than the role of the business analyst. The product owner would like to have skills in business analysis, but if not, they can lean on somebody on the Scrum team who does have that business analysis skill. But they are different, and they are approached differently in Scrum versus the traditional sequential way of working, where you would find your BA in project management versus a product owner in Scrum.
Okay, Dee, do you want to do 8 or you want me to do 8?
I would like you to do 8.
Okay, so how to estimate backlog items at the executive level? That's actually a very good question. And it's actually simpler than most people expect the answer to be. But bear in mind at executive level, you have very few items, right? You are talking at a very high level. If an organization has multiple products, they will have a portfolio of products and you're going to estimate at the portfolio level. And that can be very nebulous because there are so many things that you don't know at that level. So what I normally recommend, and I have been doing with executives, is we channel that portfolio to the area chief product owners. Let's say if this is Office 365, there would be a person for Word, one for Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and so on and so forth, right? And we have them, they talk to their product owners and get better estimates, and you basically just add them up all the way when they go back to the executive level. So you can do a lot of mathematical models and all sorts of voodoos with arithmetic, but honestly, it's very simple that you can just channel these things through the product owner organization to the Meta Scrum, the teams, get very good estimates, and then bring them up. Now, bear in mind, it depends on level estimation too, right? It's very hard to estimate something that's too far in the horizon, nor should you do that. I mean, I got a question the other day. One of my clients had about 150 items on a backlog at the team level, and they wanted to estimate everything and get everything ready before they even started their first sprint. And that's usually not a very wise thing because things do change, they do change often. So when you estimate, you shouldn't be estimating too far ahead.
You know what that sounds like, Q? When you're asked to estimate everything up front before you even get started, what does that sound like?
It smells like water falling. And you can, of course, do a more loose estimation that would turn out into being a roadmap, you know, which is just an indication of intention. But you to get really accurate estimates, you're only going to have it for short term, and you can just use the organization to channel requests down and then get the estimates consolidated at the top.
Yeah, we aggregate
just aggregate.
Yeah.
So those are most of the questions that related to the bulk of the questions we got the last time. So I think we can open now for further questions and further clarifications. I just want to tell something. Somebody, Miguel actually put in there in the chat window. The beauty of physical boards is you don't have to request access to them. They're just hanging in there. That's a great point, Miguel. That's one of the things I always train my execs. Instead of asking questions, just walk through the floor and you see all those boards, they're all the answers you want. And we noticed that they stopped asking questions really quick after that because they can find the information really easily.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to Carol.
So Lewis was talking here too about how what we were just talking about could be called agile fall, cragile, wagile. I mean, there's all kinds of names for trying to mash up agile and traditional sequential ways of working. And I get that, and we all know the pain that goes along with trying to make a hybrid of those two. But then there are those organizations, as Lewis was mentioning, that are highly focused on budget. And I would invite anybody who's working in an organization where they're highly focused on budget to help them understand that when you're using Scrum, you are using the empirical process, so you are making better decisions on what is known versus what is not known. So if they want to make better decisions on their budget, they should be using something other than trying to determine everything up front. So Carol, back to you. Do we have some questions?
Absolutely, and that's a fantastic segue into the first question, and that is who should maintain the project budget and manage resources?
Ooh, I'm gonna start out here as we tend to do with our coaching circle class, our coaching circle coaching classes. Oh, Q, help me out. What do we call those things that we do?
The coaching sessions. Coaching sessions that we do 4 times a month online.
There you go. I tend to start out and then Q fills in the blanks for me. So first of all, I call people, not resources. A stapler might be a resource. That's why you saw me cringe with that one. The budget, as we know, is owned by the product owner. And as we were talking about some of the techniques, including aggregating estimates from the Scrum team level up, is a great way to take a look at and manage the budget. Carol, did I get all the points in that question?
I think you did.
Okay.
I would add one thing, and I had this discussion with executives multiple times. Your budget from year to year does not change much. If it does, it's plus or minus 10%. So I normally tell that people should consider the teams to be stable, their cost is known, and you just channel works to the teams. If you're very budget conscious, that's actually the best way you can do it, because you know your cost. It's pretty much fixed. Barring some contractors that you bring from time to time, the cost is pretty much the same. Now, mind you, when people say, well, we have budgetary concerns and we should join roles because that's more economical, I would argue that what you're going to do is you're going to create more decision delay. You're going to end up creating quality problems, and all those things can be quantified by metrics. And in the end, you are actually spending more money instead of saving money, because it's very common you have non-dedicated product owners that the team sometimes takes 2 or 3 days to get an answer. And that has a cost. And a lot of people don't account for that cost. I usually do. And you would be surprised how you can prove really quick that you are actually not saving money, you are actually spending more money. Mm-hmm. So be very careful with the assumptions that having more people actually make things more expensive.
All right, Carol, what else do we got?
So one of the questions that we had was, I love your answer about not sharing Scrum roles, but as a professional coach that has to work, what are some incremental ways to move orgs towards a separate PO and a separate Scrum Master?
I think I can get that one.
Okay.
I don't know how you go about doing your coaching and what your level of exposure is in the organization. There are team coaches, there are enterprise coaches. I can tell you one thing from experience. If you try to do a transformation starting at a team level and trying to go up from there, and from the 7 I did, 2 of them were exactly that way, you're going to have a lot of difficulty, because you're basically going to have to find somebody in leadership who allows you to do a pilot program, separating both roles, and hope that everything works. Mm-hmm. Now, when you come from the leadership side, which both Dee and I have done, you explain what the advantages are, you explain what the roles are, why they are that way. And not to my surprise, actually, a lot of leadership people understand that quite quickly. And I have metrics from previous jobs that can show exactly what I was just talking about, that in the end is more expensive. So I think in the end, you may be hampered if you are working exclusively at the team level in not having access to the leadership and not having the sponsorship that you need. Yeah. So I would try to make friends with somebody above you. I mean, I'm being facetious, but that's honestly the best way to do that.
Yeah. And Q, you've heard me say this before. I don't go into organizations at the team level until and unless I've had that conversation at the leadership level, so that leadership understands and can provide informed consent on making these changes. And not only that they are going to give informed consent, they will support these changes, they will support these roles, they will support this framework, because if they do not, they're not setting everyone up for success. And if we start with leadership, that means we can change the culture of the organization, because culture, as we know, follows structure, and structure changes need to happen at leadership level in order for them to happen at the team level. Do we have time for one more?
We do, and I'm going to make one comment also. There's been some comments about tools and boards and all that kind of thing, and whether or not, you know, if people are all co-located, that's great to walk the walls, but sometimes you can't. And the comment I'm going to just out there for everybody, if you haven't heard of this one resource or tool, it's called Nuriva, N-U-R-E-V-A. If you go to nuriva.com, it's this awesome tool that you can actually create your boards digitally, but they're always on your wall. It turns your walls into a digital whiteboard. You can leave all of your boards on there, and then the people that aren't co-located, they can actually walk the same wall, and it's a really unique product. So if you're interested in checking that out, just thought I'd provide that for you. So I tried to kind of combine, and we've got a couple questions around the answer to question 3, Q, about who does prioritization of epics. And the answer that was provided was chief product owner. Should the chief product owner be an executive level role and part of the executive action team?
Dee, you want to go?
Okay, here's a consultant's answer for you. It depends. And what I mean by that is how large is how large is the transformation? How scaled are we? Because as we know, we can scale infinitely. Scrum at Scale works in any size organization. If we call this the terminal product owner. If the terminal product owner is at the chief product owner level, then yes, they would be included in the executive meta Scrum. If the organization is a smaller organization, you may have folks that are on the executive meta Scrum in an executive capacity that may also be on the executive action team. And we saw that in the case of 3M HIS case study. And for those looking for case studies on the transformation and scaling of Scrum, please go out to the scrumatscale.org site to see those case studies under the references tabs.
.com, sorry.
I'm sorry, .com. Thank you.
Sure.
One quick thing I just want to mention. When you have problems with money restrictions, to get more people in, I'd rather have one product owner serving multiple teams, and even a Scrum Master serving 2 teams or 3 teams even, than have the role combined. Because you are already going to prove that it works that way, even though they're going to be a tiny little bit overloaded, and I'm being facetious about a tiny little, but it will prove the point already. So I'd rather have a Scrum Master with multiple teams, a product owner with multiple teams, than a product owner Scrum Master combo in each team.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We have come to the end of our time box for today, and I want to respect everybody's time and thank everybody for joining. If you love this format, remember there are the coaching circles that we've mentioned. If you'd like to go to the website and check that out, they're called virtual coaching sessions. Also, the Certified Scrum at Scale Practitioner class, if you want to get more in depth. I just took it, and I'm very excited to say I passed my test, so I am a practitioner, and was very excited about the content that I learned. It was awesome. So I'd like to thank Dee and Q for their insights today and for sharing that with us. And that concludes our webinar. The only thing I would ask is if you found this valuable, if you could put in the chat window, before I close it, I'm going to keep it open for a couple minutes. Just put in the chat window whether you found this valuable. Give us an NPS kind of score, 1 to 10. And we'd love any other feedback that you have. Thank you so much. Make it a great day. I'll leave it open for 1 minute. We're getting lots of feedback.
Yeah, quite a bit actually.
Yeah, so we're still open.
It's good to see we were helpful.
Yes, thank you.
That's why we do this, guys. Thank you very much.
Kidding.
I appreciate the feedback greatly.
Absolutely. Will there be a session number 3?
I think there will be.
I think it would be nice if, instead of session number 3, start coming to the coaching circles. Well, this, it's a continuous conversation that never ends.
Yep. I'm going to end the meeting now.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great one.